White Show.
Well, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the inauguration of Donald Trump from the inside of the Capitol building on January the 20th. But there was one thing that has set social media abuzz, or Twitter abuzz. I mean, everybody was talking about it. And I really didn't see it, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But I did happen to see a TV excerpt of Megyn Kelly. Now, Megyn Kelly was a former lawyer who became a broadcaster. She was on Fox Network for a number of years, and she's been on some number of networks. She's now on Sirius. And nice lady, and she's very opinionated, very much to the right, and that's perfectly fine. But she had an opinion that involving the fiance of Jeff Bezos, because Mr. Bezos from Amazon, he's the really wealthy guy, richest guy in the world apparently, or at least one of the richest. And he appeared there at the event to honor President Trump being inaugurated. With his fiance. His fiance is named Lauren Sanchez. Now, if you don't know who she is, she was married to a gentleman by the name of Patrick Whitesell, who was a big talent agent in Los Angeles for big celebrities. And but apparently they got divorced, and then she hooked up with Bezos because he had divorced his wife of about 25 years. Her name was Mackenzie Scott. In that deal, Ms. Kinsey Scott got $38 billion of Bezos' fortune. Which makes her one of the richest women in the world now. But anyway, so Bezos hooks up with this Lauren Sanchez. Well, she showed up at the Washington event, which is a very big event, and you're there to see the president being sworn in, wearing a Alexander McQueen outfit. Okay, fine, I don't know who the guy is. But underneath that, she was wearing a lace bra. Sorry, but if that was a lace bra, I don't know. I saw the video of it, and I went, you got to be kidding me. I mean, take a look for yourself. You know, I mean, this is what it was. So he brings his sweetheart in, his squeeze in, and she is wearing this revealing outfit at the event honoring the president. She got a lot more attention, I think, than Trump did, especially from some of the honored guests, like, the head of Facebook, Meta, if you will, Mr. Zuckerberg. Notice where his eyes are going. Yes. So Megyn Kelly said, hey, I've said it before, but this woman dresses like a hooker. Well, harsh words, but take a look. This is probably not appropriate, friends. Sorry. Everybody else was dressed, very elegantly, very classy. But if she wants to ingrain herself with Jeff Bezos and go from being a fiance to being Mrs. Bezos, hence entitled to a lot of money, things don't work out, I guess that's her call. But the only thing I can say is that it was a little bit disturbing. It was upsetting. And I don't know if ladies really need to go showing off their assets, especially at a coronation of a president, the inauguration, if you will. That was a little bit, shall we say, over the top, or at least looking down the blouse, whichever way you happen to look at it. Somewhat inappropriate, but things happen in Washington, D.C. you're not going to see anywhere else in the world. That Donald Trump made going into office, he said there's things I'm going to do. And it turns out he's starting to do them. Here's the latest one that he has implicated. He says we're going to change things in America. He has told his Office of Personnel Management, I guess you'd call that the HR department of the U.S. government, that anybody and everybody involved with DEI is gone. You heard me right. As of the January 17th, close of business on that date, anybody involved with DEI, diversity, equity, and inequality is about to lose their job. You heard me correct. Now, this is going to be immediate. Anybody in those areas is going to be put on immediate leave, paid leave, and waiting for what is known as a reduction in force. Now, in parlay, that's called a RIF, R-I-F, and it's happened before. I'll give you a perfect example. Back at the end of the Vietnam War, 1975, the government did a whole big thing to get rid of a lot of military people they did not need. But you see, there was a thing in government back in those days that if you served in the United States military for less than 5 years, you weren't paid a bonus, a severance pay, if you will, and it was a pretty substantial amount of money for anybody over 5 years. So what the government did in 75 was to RIF, reduction in force, a whole bunch of military people. It was officers, enlisted, mostly officers. Get them out of the military because they don't have to pay a bonus. Well, the government's getting ready to do that again. Anybody involved with diversity and equity and equality and everything else, they're going to lose their job. President Trump says, hey, everybody's name, anybody associated with that stuff, you are toast. You're gone. He said back a long time ago, he said, we need to get rid of this DEI stuff out of government because DEI means DIE. Now, he's doing it. And obviously the Office of Personnel Management says, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to clean these people out. They're going to be, well, out of a job. Sorry. That's the way it is. I'm sure some people are going to file a lawsuit. It wouldn't surprise me to say you can't fire me, but they can. So that's what's coming up. And now you know they're working inside of government. First off, they're telling anybody in government, if you've been working at home, get your butt back into the office Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. Item number 1. Item number 2, you're involved with DEIs, you're toast, you're gone. Now, Pete Hegseth says that he gets approved to be the Secretary of Defense. He's going to remove it from the military because what they are trying to do is socially engineer the military. And you never, never do that. So, DEI is being removed by the government, one of the promises that Donald Trump made on the campaign. And it seems like right now, he's doing everything he said he was going to do. Kind of refreshing when you think about it, because most politicians will promise you anything but give you arpege. It's an old quote from an old joke, I guess. So right now, DEI is being taken out of government, going toward merit. Who's the best for the job? Gets the job. Some of you maybe didn't know. So now you know. You see people out there in the corner looking for a job. They were probably in DEI in the government, and it's a lot more people than you might think. That's what's coming up, folks. And it all ends immediately, according to Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States. He's doing what he said he would do, and he means it. Here it is, that time of year, folks, when the awards start coming out. As you know, we just went through the Golden Globes, the European writers, and what they thought. And some people won some awards, okay, fine and dandy. I thought Billy Bob Thornton should have won for Best Actor, but Shogun obviously won about everything going on in that deal. But now the Academy Awards are coming up, but here's something that came out, and I saw that and I went, you gotta be kidding me. All right, Academy Awards were announced, and the one movie with a total of 13 nominations. That's pretty big. 13 nominations must be, it's quite a movie. Well, the movie is called Amelia Perez. And you're going, Amelia Perez? I haven't seen that. It's a musical. And you want to talk about a musical, folks. This musical is about a Mexican drug lord who undergoes surgery so he can be a woman. Turning a man into a woman, surgery, movie, musical. Figure that one out. Because even I haven't figured that one out. But I'm telling you what's going on in the moviedom and in what's coming out of Hollywood. Hollywood, folks, is not America, at least not in my opinion. And if this is what they're putting out and saying this is what America wants to see, apparently I'm living in the wrong place. Because I don't know if that's what America wants. But it received 13 Oscar nominations, the most of anybody. And it's a musical, turning a man into a woman, transgender surgery. Yeah, that's got to be snappy peppy. All right. And then the next two with the 10 Oscar nominations each, one called The Brutalist about a couple that comes from Hungary and tries to run away from the communist situation. And one that actually my family, my daughters, my wife, went to see a movie called Wicked. And they apparently liked it. And Wicked is a musical, obviously. So now you have Wicked and Amelia Perez vying for the Best Oscar Award. First time you've had two musicals do that in a long time. But, well, actually, first time since 1968. Because back in 1968, the movie Oliver and Funny Girl, both on the same program, both vying for the Best Oscar Award. And that was the last time they had two musicals vying for the Best Picture Award. Now, I tell you all that only because it makes you wonder what's going on in Hollywood. And the unfortunate thing is, if people are watching this, maybe not, I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers, the box office numbers, so I can't predict anything. But if it has low attendance, but it has the Oscars, it just goes to show you who's voting for this stuff in Hollywood. This is the Hollywood insiders voting. These are the people in Tinseltown. They're voting for what they believe is the best. If they're voting for what they believe is the best, I'm not sure that the rest of America believes that's the greatest thing to go see. I got no problem with the movie Wicked because apparently my wife and daughters both liked it. But Amelia Perez? At least not for me. Maybe for you, but at least you now know what's up for the Best Picture in Hollywood. 13 nominations. Amelia Perez, a movie about a Mexican drug lord who goes under surgery to become a woman. Go figure, folks. Go figure. Biden has been trying to focus on his legacy in the last few days or weeks in office. And by doing that, it's sort of like trying to say, here's all the good stuff I've done in my administration. Well, that's the way it used to be, and not anymore. Because nowadays, when the left loses, what they do is they try to inflict on all of us stuff that we didn't vote for and we didn't want. The problem is, he's no longer elected. There's nothing we can do about it. Now, let me give you a few examples. He took huge swaths of land, especially ocean areas on the outside of the United States, because we got the ocean surrounding us on both left and right side. Said, nah, sorry, you can't go for oil and gas in those waters. Going to stop that, stopping potential energy production down the road. And then this is a gem that really frosts me. He is now going to allow federal workers to work from home for the next 5 years. I'm not sure if the new administration coming in can change that. They're probably going to try. But he tried to get that thing shoved through, and regardless of whatever anybody could do about it. And finally, the final one, pardoning his son Hunter Biden. He didn't just pardon him for one crime, he pardoned him for everything in a 6-year period. So whatever he did in that time period, you can't charge him with. Is he done pardoning people? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he's going to grant pardons to all kinds of people. Liz Cheney and whoever else he thinks need to be pardoned. Adam Schiff, yeah, that might be another one too. But those are some of the things that he has done to create his legacy. Now, is his legacy going to be strong? Well, right now, according to the polls, and if you believe the polls, he's got himself probably one of the lowest ratings of any president's ever had coming out of office. Not that every president doesn't get low ratings when they're coming out of office. It pretty much happens to all of them. But his, is one of the lowest of the low. Now, he's leaving his mark on the nation, and I agree with that. Problem is, the mark is not a good one. And right now, we don't know the final things he's going to do. The word is that he may do some more pardons of people in prison, letting everybody out. That's his way. That's what he wants to do for his legacy. And remember, every president wants to have a legacy. In this case, it may not be a good legacy. It may be probably one of the worst that Americans have ever seen, especially Americans who didn't vote for him and don't want the plan that he has in mind. But then again, is it his plan, or is it the plan of people who work in his administration? I'm guessing between you and me, it's B, not A. That's all I got for you right now. Think about that as you go down the road. Time ago when a woman had a cup of McDonald's coffee between her legs and ultimately spilled it, and a jury awarded her millions of dollars in compensation and punitive damages because, well, the coffee was supposedly too hot. Well, ultimately, the judge knocked down a lot of that penalty, but McDonald's was still charged and convicted, if you will, of having the wrong temperature of their coffee. Well, another lawsuit, folks, has reared its ugly head, and this one takes place in the grand old state of Texas. See, down in Texas, there's a barbecue service down there called Bill Miller's Barbecue, and it's all over Texas. There's like 75 locations, and if you want barbecue, you go to Bill Miller's. Well, this woman goes into Bill Miller's back in October of 2023, so, over 2 years ago, orders a breakfast tacos, and with it she gets a sauce. Now supposedly the sauce is supposed to be warm. It's the morning, you want warm sauce, I guess. Supposedly the sauce is supposed to be 165 degrees. Well, she dumped the sauce out of the bag and ultimately it spilled on her leg. Turns out the sauce was 189 degrees. What did she do? Well, she does what somebody does at all fast food restaurants. You sue. Which is exactly what she did. Well, like I said, this incident happened back in October of 2023, and it finally got into the courts. The jury decided to award Genesis Monita. She's 19 years old, or she was 19 at the time of this incident happened, awarded her $2.8 million because she dumped out the bag of barbecue sauce onto her leg, and it was 189 degrees instead of 165. Now, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but now you're getting concerned because, well, what happened with McDonald's years ago, that woman dumped the coffee in her lap, and it was too hot. So, apparently it wasn't labeled right or whatever. Well, now, everything, you got warning labels on virtually everything you could think of. So the next warning label you're probably going to see will be on a packet of barbecue sauce. I don't particularly care what temperature it is, but they're going to put a warning label on it. And that's the problem we have in America. Got warning labels on everything because there's juries out there that'll sue anybody for anything. And they do. So now Miss Genesis Bonita's got herself $2.8 million. Well, her attorney does, or at least a good chunk of it. Just telling you what happened down in the great state of Texas involving barbecue sauce. That's it for now. America, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Joe Biden farewell speech a few days ago, but in it I was watching it and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This kind of reminds me of an episode from the old TV series Seinfeld, and it had to do with Festivus. That's right, the holiday celebrated by George Costanza's father, Festivus, December 23rd, a festival for the rest of us. You have the aluminum pole, that's all you had to celebrate it. But the big deal here was in this particular episode, airing of grievances. And apparently, that's exactly what Joe Biden was doing in his farewell address, airing of grievances. And I sat there and watched this, and I realized that some of the things that Joe had done, just as a way of kind of screwing things up, was to take huge swaths of land that had been used by oil companies to look for oil, because we need oil, and outlawed being checked out, outlawed being used. That was one of his final things. And then, here's another one. Joe Biden allowed, by law, federal workers to work at home for the next 5 years. That's right. Federal workers are going to be allowed to work at home, not come into the office for the next 5 years, and had it done in such a way that the new administration can't change it back. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, pardoning Hunter Biden, his son, and all the things he said. Oh, it was concerned about the oligarchy coming in, the oligarchy. Like George Soros wasn't an oligarchy, Mr. Biden? No, he was concerned about the new technical oligarchy. The Elon Musk coming in, apparently. Well, whether you like it or not, AI is here and robots are here, and so are drones. But it was a speech about being angry, apparently, about all the things that you were upset about, and you're complaining about it. And he doesn't like the new administration coming in at all. But here you have to understand something, folks. Joe Biden probably didn't write any of this. It was probably written by his staff members, the people on his staff that probably were running the White House, because he is, well, sort of not as good as he used to be. All right? So there's the problem. So there he was doing a Festivus for the rest of us, an airing of grievances. So if you watch the Biden speech, now you know why I was thinking of the Seinfeld episode and wondering, looking back at his office at the White House, where the aluminum pole was. Because he's celebrating. The only problem was, it isn't December 23rd. No, it was the last dying days of his particular administration. Now you've seen it. A Festivus for the rest of us from Joe Biden. New Indiana Governor Mike Braun has got his executive pen working in the first 2 days of being sworn into office. Executive Order number 2514 said that all executive branch state agencies may not, I repeat, may not use resources to, quote, support diversity, equity, and inclusion positions, departments, activities, procedures, or programs if they grant preferential treatment based upon one's particular sex, race, color, ethnicity, national origin over that of any other person. Basically, what he did was he dumped the DEI program. Bingo, bango, bongo, it is done. And the order also calls for the closure of the Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Office that was created under old Governor Holcomb. Now, the new Chief Equity Officer is out of a job. Her name is Kara Herring. Well, her job is gone. So, new governor, Mr. Braun, says, sorry, DEI in the state of Indiana is DED, dead. Wants it gone. And frankly, it's probably the smartest move he could have made. Now, I can tell you this, that Democratic House Leader Phil Giacquina of Fort Wayne, he is upset about it. He issued a statement saying this is a distraction from the real issues of his constituents face. No, it's not a distraction. The constituents said in plain everyday terms, we want this thing dead. We want it out. You don't need it. You promote on equity. That's what you do. And dumping DEI is exactly what the governor did. And frankly, it was probably not a bad idea. Now, I understand Mr. Giacquina saying, sorry, it takes away from everything else going on in the state. No, it doesn't. All he did was rescind with an executive order that had previously been done. Stroke of a pen, thank you very much, it's over and done with. Now, I respect that a whole lot from the governor because he came in and said we've got to get things taken care of. And also, here's the other thing he did, and I like this one too. He had another executive order signed that having to do with the return to work order. So these people who went working at home during the COVID thing, they still aren't back at work. Well, the governor issues an order, says, y'all come back. If you don't come back, you got no job. You know what? Good plan. So the governor gets rid of DEI and tells those work-at-home folks, y'all come back to the office. That's where you belong. All in all, I think he had a good couple of first days. And frankly, I'm happy about that. Don't know about you, but DEI is dead, and people are going back to the office where they belong. That's what's going on in the state of Indiana. Let me ask you a question. When you were young, were you ever a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout? One of the things you learned back in those days, you had to go out on a hike and you had to use a compass to kind of figure out where I'm going, where I am. Gee, that which way is north and that which way is south, and the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Well, that's all because using your compass. What a lot of people don't realize is your compass, well, it ain't exactly correct. well, I don't mean to say that it's incorrect, but magnetic north, which is where your compass wants to go to, changes. And it's been changing for the last 400 years. Now, first time they decided to go checking this out was back in 1590. And they found out the magnetic north was sort of in the northern part of Canada. Was nowhere near the geographic north, the North Pole that we call it. Wasn't there. It was basically in Canada. And then back in 1620, it had moved again. Well, it moved all the time. And over the last 400 years, that magnetic north has been changing. Now, finally it settled in the northern part of Canada and then ultimately started moving due north. And that happened about 1850. And from that point on, every time they checked where the magnetic north was, it was moving closer and closer to the geographic north, right there where the North Pole is. Well, that changes things in compasses because obviously your compass is now pointing a little bit different direction than it did before. Changes airfields because they have to change the number of the runways because runways are laid out based upon the magnetic field of the world. So if you see a runway that says 22, that's a magnetic heading of 220. But if it shifts, well, that runway may have to change its number from 22 to say 23. That happened here in Fort Wayne as many other places did. The reason I tell you that is because, well, things keep moving all the time. And we don't really know why. We know the Earth is a molten core of metal. And you see what happens when the Earth gets angry, you get volcanoes popping up. And they're never necessarily good. But now we know a little something we didn't know before. But the magnetic pole has moved once again farther north and closer to the geographical North Pole. And could the two eventually become right in the same area? Yes, they could. And that way you could say, hey, that's north, and you know you're pointing north, not necessarily to the northeast. So that's what's going on, folks. So if you wonder what's going on with the navigation, well, remember when you were a kid and your dad had a compass attached to the mirror so he knew which direction he was going when the wife was reading the map and complaining at him which way he should be going? Well, I remember that. But now you know something you didn't know before. Magnetic north, it's continuing to change because whatever's going on inside the Earth, it's sort of like a baby growing in a mother's womb. It moves around. And apparently that's the same thing happening to magnetic north as far as the use of your compass. Will it affect your life a whole lot? Probably not. But at least it's something you now know. You can say, yeah, you know magnetic north has been changing for the last 400 years. It keeps moving. And now it's moving closer and closer to the geographic North Pole of the world. Maybe someday they'll match up. But beyond that, I can't tell you what it's going to do. Just a little information, some science stuff today. And we hope that you'll be able to use it as you progress in life. That's all I got. Remember this, but back in the 1970s, and if you look at the photos from back in those days, you'll rarely see anybody overweight. And I mean, that was the fact. I remember life back then, and nobody was overweight. But today, what do they say? 60% of America is overweight. Why is that? Well, predominantly it's because of what we eat. And in light of that, a representative out of Oklahoma, his name is Josh Breachin, I believe it is. Could be mispronouncing that name. Well, he has introduced a new act in front of the House of Representatives. And it passed through the House, goes on to the Senate. Senate may approve it, and the House and Senate approve it, and send to the President for signing. Well, here's what it's called. The Healthy SNAP Act. Now, SNAP, as you know, is, well, food stamps. All right? Basically what it is, food stamps. And this was all generated by Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. You remember, he was appointed by Donald Trump to get America off the fat stuff, to clean up our act, to help lower the amount of obesity that exists in this country. And that's what he's doing. And right now, Representative Beechin from Oklahoma is helping out. Turns out this Healthy SNAP Act was actually introduced a year ago when Marco Rubio, new Secretary of State, when he introduced it. Well, now it's been introduced again, but here's the deal. In this new SNAP Act, people on welfare getting food stamps would no longer be able to buy things like soft drinks, candy, ice cream, cakes, pies, cookies, all sorts of prepared desserts. If they want to buy it on their own dime, that's their call. But the United States government and the taxpayer, that's you and me, shouldn't be allowing people to buy this stuff that's ultimately going to kill them because it makes people fat. Like I said, in the 70s, I never saw anybody that was overweight. And if you did, it was kind of it was a rarity. Didn't happen. Now, today, everybody seems to be that way. So the new SNAP Act, the healthy SNAP Act, going to prohibit people from buying soft drinks, candy, ice cream, cake, pies, cookies, you name it. A lot of heavy fat stuff will no longer be allowed to be purchased with those food stamps. They want to buy it on their own money, they're welcome to it. Now you know something that government is doing to try to clean things up, and finally it's about time that somebody stepped up and did it. Well, remember during the run-up to the election, Democrats were saying, boy, if Trump gets in office, he's going to go after all kinds of people. He's going to be vindictive. He's going to be like he's getting even. Well, maybe a little bit. It was just announced that he has issued an executive order revoking, and I mean shutting off, cutting off the security clearances of 51 people who signed that famous letter saying the emails from Hunter Biden's laptop, were classic Russian disinformation. And they signed that just before the election, because remember when that was released in 2020, just before the election? Well, so President Trump said, okay, we're ending the clearances for all you folks. Now, many of those people no longer in government, not involved, but I'll tell you right now, this is a huge blow to know that your security clearance was jerked because you signed a letter that, and then when asked about it after it was revealed that they were wrong, none of them wanted to say a word. Biggest one involved with this was John Bolton. He was a former security advisor to Donald Trump and ultimately left the office and wrote a very vicious book about Donald Trump, and there's no love lost between the two of them. And you always know that when John Bolton is now appearing frequently on CNN. So you know exactly how he feels about Donald Trump. So his security clearance has also been revoked. Will it affect those people's lives? Probably not a lot, except they're going to have a little red star hung on them, if you will, saying you signed a document that you knew was incorrect, but because you're in the Washington swamp, whatever you're told to do, if you want to keep your job in government, you're going to have to sign the document. And apparently they did. So now all their clearances have been revoked. Can they get them back? Well, possibly. I can't guarantee that. But is this a way of getting revenge or getting back at these people? Well, you know what? If that was done to you, how would you feel if you knew that what these people were saying was a flat-out, bald-faced lie? And then when confronted with it, you refuse to discuss it. I know nothing, sort of like Sergeant Schultz, if you remember Hogan's Heroes. So, now we know. Donald Trump has revoked the security clearances of 51 people, and especially John Bolton's, saying, yeah, back at you, partner. This is what you did to me. Now I'm returning the favor. And you know what? I don't blame him for what he did. For a Republican representative of Pennsylvania, his name is Guy Reschenthaler, introduced a bill with 6 co-sponsors to rename Dulles International into Trump International Airport. Now, back in April of last year, that probably didn't have a snowball's chance in you-know-where of passing. It kind of gotten past the House, but the Senate, back then it was controlled by the Democrats. Well, that was yesterday, as they say. Now it's 2025. Republicans have the control of both the House and the Senate, and the White House, obviously. So, the question now is, will this bill that was introduced by Mr. Reschenthaler, strange name, but that's his name, will that be in fact revived and put out there for the Senate to take a look at and the President to sign? Imagine changing the name of Dulles International, which is number 33 out of a total of 764 airports in the U.S. as far as passengers. Every year, some 25 million people go through Dulles. Now, do you want to notice something? There's another airport in Washington, D.C. That's the Washington International. Well, years ago, that was renamed into Ronald Reagan. So now it's pretty well known as the Reagan, and that's what they call it in Washington, D.C., because the name was changed. But will the House and the Senate decide that, hey, we want to change the name of Dulles, which is kind of a famous name when you think about it, who it was named after, into Donald Trump's name? And would he actually sign a bill that says we're going to do that? You know, there's certain things you could do, and your ego is what your ego is. His name is on plenty of hotels and other properties around the United States, but having his name on an international airport, I'm not so sure that he would want to see that happen. Now, I'm saying to you right now, like I said, this bill was introduced back in 2024, but it's been brought up. So will it have a chance to go through the House again, and will the House send it on to the Senate? And will the Senate actually debate it? To be honest with you, I don't know. But right now, I'm not so sure that's probably the best idea, the best thing to do. Dulles is a famous airport, and flying into Dulles, well, you know where you were going. But naming it after Trump, even me, and I'm pretty conservative on a lot of things, not so sure that's the best thing to do. There's other things that could be done, but that, in my humble opinion, well, isn't one of those things. That's just my opinion, and I'm going to stick to it. I don't really think it needs to be done. We'll see what the Congress does, but now you know my opinion. Well, just before Joe Biden left office, he did a number of things, tried to issue all sorts of different proclamations, some of which, well, you know what they are, about pardoning people and even pardoning his entire family members. Not himself, of course, but everybody else in his family. I don't know what they did wrong, but eventually we may find out. But anyway, one of the bigger things that he did, he declared that the Equal Rights Amendment had been passed, and it is now officially the 28th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Now, you're probably sitting there going, what? The 28th Amendment? What's going on? Well, let me tell you a little story. And it ain't a story. Back in 1972, the Congress passed what they call was the Equal Rights Amendment. And it says women have equal rights in everything, and but had to go to the states to be ratified. Now, under the rules of putting something in the Constitution, you've got to have 38 states, or 3/4 of the states have got to approve this in order for it to be a constitutional amendment. Well, that was 72. That amendment sat there for decades, and I mean decades. And it wasn't until 2020, now we're talking virtually 50 years later, that the state of Virginia approved the amendment. Well, the problem was there's a time limit on these amendments. At least that's the implication. But they approved that, and so if you didn't realize that, Biden at the end of his term says, 28th Amendment, I was the one who got it in, and all it has to be is read by the archivist of the United States Congress to say, yes, it's official, it's real, publish it and put it into the record. Well, that archivist is Dr. Colleen Shogun, and she said, there's some problems with this, because in the interim time, 5 states decided, hey, we're not going to go with this. So that 75%, the 30-some states you had to have, 38 states, well, 5 of them said, we've decided not to go along with this. So technically, they backed out. Well, Biden is saying, no, you may have backed out, but it's been ratified and it's going to go into effect, which will allow, among other things, the right to women to have abortions, apparently. At least that's some of what they say. Now, what's going to happen to that supposed amendment if it doesn't get published? Well, either way, this thing is going to be going to the United States Supreme Court. I can almost guarantee you. There's a lot of things that are probably going to be taken to court, but this one is a biggie. Whether the 72 amendment that sat there for 50 plus years was suddenly ratified in 2020, whether it's legitimate after 5 states backed out. So it's going to be something you're going to see down the road, folks. Yes, you're going to see everybody's going to be complaining and filing lawsuits to say what Trump did he can't do and what Biden said he could do, and it's going to be a battle. And there's going to be a ton of court cases coming up. But I believe the 28th Amendment, the Equal Rights Amendment from 1972, that wasn't ratified officially until 2020, but 5 states had already backed out. So we're going to see where that one goes in the Supreme Court. Just passing this along to you because there's going to be a whole lot of lawsuits coming. In my humble opinion, this one is probably going to be one of the biggest. The 1972 Civil Rights Amendment. Did it really pass and it really is a constitutional amendment? That, my friends, will be up to the Supreme Court to decide. Let's wait and see what happens.